Welcome, Thrones fans, to the first episode of Iron Price. I'm going to be your host, Aaron Groth. Today I have my special guest, Mr. Todd Jansen from Austin, Texas. How you doing, Todd?
I'm pretty well, Aaron. Pretty well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, sir.
Hmm.
Well, the whole point of this today is to get more Thrones content, as a good friend of ours, Will Lentz, told us that a lot of you guys out there in the community are looking for stuff like this. So hopefully we hit the nail on the head with this. Um, the Iron Price is going to be an affiliate of a yet to be announced new Thrones podcast. Yay, another Thrones podcast.
Hey, I always take that.
But here, I mean, we're really going to get down into analysis, deck building, and actual gameplay. I hope that's what most people are looking for. I know, Todd, me and you talked about it earlier. That's kind of what we were scouring when we were new players, and even to this day, still trying to find as much good Thrones content.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was definitely something I was looking for, just because, um, as some coming from someone from maybe a smaller meta that get together as often as others. I just didn't have the time to get as many reps in, even with stuff on like Iron Throne. So I was always looking for ways of understanding card interactions and deck building and just ways of getting better in that play area. So I think that's what we're hoping to do. I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm definitely a visual learner. I can
Yeah,
mimic, and I need to see these plays happen out live so I can remember, store them, and when I need to pull them out of, the toolbox, the arsenal on those any given situations at a competitive tournament.
yeah,
This is these things right here. This content is what helps out.
I
So
completely
yeah,
agree with that.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I know same thing. I'm out here, Colorado, not a big meta, and then I was, in Germany for 3 years, kind of in the middle of nowhere. Nuremberg was the closest one, so I totally can relate to that story, what you just said.
Sure.
I'm sure other people out there can relate as well.
And even if you do come from a big meta, I mean, it's like there's at this point there's a huge card pool, and you just don't have time to play every deck that you want to,
Great point.
right?
Yep, I
And so
I
you know,
completely agree. Yep, you just don't have time to do that.
And so even if you're looking at going to a tournament and you think like, well, I might face this deck, there's still value in understanding the interactions and knowing what might be coming at you. So
Correct. Yep. So without any further delay, we'll move on to actually what we're here for. So today we're going to talk about a deck, specifically right now, House Stark, Knights of the Hollow Hill agenda.
yep, yep,
First, we're going to give props to Ben Davy, Knight of Blackwater.
sure,
He started this stuff during his, he do it during his lunch times and stuff like that. So this kind of was an inspiration for me and Todd to
sure.
start here. It's the easiest and most natural way is to just talk about a deck and play it and enjoy your time with the your people in the Thrones community and playing this wonderful game that we love.
Yeah, I also want to throw out some recognition and some props to a guy in the Discord server, Normie, who does this as well. He has his own YouTube channel in which he builds decks and talks you through them and plays them as well. So I mean, it's
Yep,
not a completely original idea. We're definitely standing on the shoulders of others on this one. So
absolutely. Yep. So House Stark, Knights of the Hollow Hill. Um, so when you're doing deck building here, and for the veterans there, this is nothing new for you to hear. For the intermediates and new players, this might be something for you guys. So I'm gonna link a article. It's a Magic player, but now he plays Eternal. It's called How to Build Better Decks. And we're going to talk about this deck and use some of his ideas But I'm gonna have the article posted with this video. It'll be uploaded to YouTube, and you guys will be able to see that and read the article. And trust me, it has a lot of good insights. So when you're deck building, the first thing he's talking about is game plan. And Todd, as you know, me and you talk about it all the time. Like,
Yeah.
what do we want this deck to do? Like,
Yeah.
not only what does it, what do we want it to do? What can it do? And then is that winnable? Um,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's the number one question you have to ask yourself. And what is, how does this deck win? Like, does it? What is its game plan? How does it get there? I think a lot of times you can get caught up in like the fun interactions, or this is gonna go off, and then this is gonna happen. But at the end of the day, like, you know, what you have to pick. How's it gonna win here? You going rush? You going aggro? Is this a control deck? You're playing the longer game. Um, Fun card interactions only get you so far. I think one of the things the guy um, who wrote the article into the one of the things he points out is you need to have a solid game plan, and you need to have as your deck building, you need to make sure that you're including those cards that are furthering that game plan, and then like supporting cards for that. That I completely agree, because I can't tell you how many decks that I've put together that are just piles of cards that when you look at it, you're like, well, that's cute, but it doesn't win.
Yeah. You makes at least two or three good points there. And just for, the viewers to know, like me and Todd, we've pretty much gone in for the competitive scene. This video doesn't have to be just for that. Totally understand people out there may want to do jank, may just want to play the game, tabletop. We'll have a whole other video talking about the types of players out there. But
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Like, there are people who they just want to play and have those fun interactions, and that's completely valid. And if that's where you want to play, then that's great too. And there's value in that. But
absolutely.
that's probably not the line of thinking that we're going to be discussing here. So
No, yeah, we just want to get that forewarning out there. The line of
yeah,
thinking we're thinking is exactly what you put out, and what this guy, we only have his handle name into the end. What he put out, and like you said, he noticed players focus too heavily on interactions between specific cards, and
hmm
after doing that, what he calls a gimmick end, the interactions just become a myriad of things that
hmm
doesn't go towards your end state. They're just there. They happened, but they didn't push anywhere towards your goal. And when you're playing a game, whether it's card games, board games, or whatever, the end goal is already stated within that game. It tells you how to win. It's winning or losing when it comes to games.
yeah,
That's the only way you can have it. So with this, when we're talking about it with the game plan, we're always talking about a game plan towards the end goal of 15 power.
exactly.
Mill is the other win condition, but unfortunately, as much as my heart desires it, there's not too many decks out there that could possibly make that
I, I,
contested.
I was gonna say I've been playing this game for a while now, and I don't think I've ever been milled. I've come close,
Yeah.
but I've never milled anyone. I know for sure.
Yeah, shout out to
I mean,
the old Lanny Green site. I know Dave Bamford loved that.
yeah, that's right.
May that rest in peace. I mean, I got a couple people on Iron Throne with that deck when I was originally testing it, and I think it was like last year before. I think it was the first Jesse name day.
Sure.
Just playing around with that. But
Yeah, I
anyways,
think
we
Bamford
digress.
was really big on that deck. We
Yeah,
digress.
yeah, we digress on that one. So next theme he talks about is deck building mechanics. So some of the terminology is gonna be eternal or magic, not so much thrones, but we're gonna try to translate as best we can. He's gonna talk
Sure.
about power base, curve, sideboard, and card selection. Power base, curve, and card selection definitely translate just fine. Sideboard, we don't have so much
Yeah,
sideboard.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of rookery running around right
Yeah,
now, so
exactly. Yeah, so really sideboard is going to be more or less the cards. When you thinking about going to a tournament, you have to be in tune with the meta as is now. So we have Nats coming up, United States Nationals, I should say, uh, coming up for us, and me and you are going to attend. So, like, for
sure.
us, sideboard is going to be how are we going to hedge our bets? What decks, if we make it into the top tables, what decks are we mostly going to see? So that kind of will
Yep.
be our sideboarding is what cards are going to counter those decks.
Well, I think as you're building and testing the decks, you keep if you're looking at playing competitive, you keep a list of those cards. You keep them in mind of cards like I might need to slot this in if this is a real problem, and those are things that you identify as you look at the meta at large, and but I think everybody kind of has their own way of doing that, but it's definitely something I think better players keep in mind. Like if there's going to be a lot of this show up, then I'm going to have to switch out X, Y, and Z for this. So
Yeah, very much so. That definitely is a good example of a sideboard for a game. And
yeah,
then lastly, he talks about quality testing, and we can definitely talk about that easily because we've been doing
sure,
it. We
yeah.
like to use a Google sheet. Keeps track of the wins and losses to each faction and agenda, and then also we just give a quick description about what was our critical turns, what was critical plots.
What
Um,
cards? What cards were you happy to see? What cards
yeah,
set in your hand all game?
exactly.
Just keeping notes over over a number of games and reps. You start to see patterns emerge. You start to see what your strong matchups are, what your weak matchups are. It that more than anything has been a huge tool
Yep.
um, in helping develop better decks and develop helping me grow as a better player as well.
Absolutely. And then we also have like plot on plot, when you flip this
Hmm.
plot, what did they flip? And then where was the power at the end of end of that round? That can be helpful in the beginning. After a while, you don't really need it as much because you know what plots are better than others at certain times. And Thrones is pretty quick of a game where your critical turns are usually turn two, turn three, is what we've averaged out.
Yeah, that's true. I think one of the things that makes Thrones unique is the plot, and so um, you have people that are good with playing the cards on the board, playing their hand, but maybe struggle with the plot game or vice versa. And I think keeping track of those plot interactions, I flip this, they flip that, has been really helpful as well. Um, to try to win that plot game or understand what this certain deck is going to flip in this turn so I can counter it um, has been really big.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so that covers those three. So we're gonna get to the deck now, the bare bones of this deck and stuff, and
Hmm.
we'll slowly, talk about the article as we go through, but we won't talk all about it. Hoping you guys will actually read it and get a better understanding. I thought it was really good.
No, yeah, it was well worth the read.
Yeah, very much so. So, all right, let's get into it. So, House
Sure.
Stark right now is probably the second best house next to Greyjoy in our meta as of August 2019.
Sure.
So we don't really need to talk about much about House Stark. Most people will know. And if you're new, there's some good videos out there done by Roy Rogers who talks about certain factions and things like that.
Yeah,
You can check that
factions. I
out.
think he does one on like play or deck types. I
Yeah,
think too. Like Roy's really done a lot of good work in the why and how of it or
yeah,
those
absolutely.
videos. They're excellent.
Yeah. So let's talk about Knights of Hollow Hill. That is an agenda that you just don't see too much unless you're on Iron Throne.
Yeah, it's done. it showed up in the cut in a couple tournaments. I wasn't I wasn't huge on this when it first came out because of the no setup,
Yeah, let's talk about
but
that. So first off,
yeah,
it's saying you cannot place cards during setup. Your other cards do not provide gold bonuses. So
yep.
I mean,
Well, and
when this
then
game
plus
be
three income, plus two initiative, and
initiative
plus
plus
one
one
reserve.
reserve.
Sure.
Yeah, but let's first just talk about the setup and no other gold bonuses. That right there, if you were in the game in the beginning too, you definitely notice like if you got, what Magic would say, mana screwed or whatever. If you just got location, choked, and that's just by
Hmm.
variance, not by someone doing that to you. You learn early in this game like you lost. You set up one character, March to the Wall is coming.
Oh yeah.
Setup is actually very integral to this game, and it's taken, a couple years for me to see it with certain agendas, like the
Yep.
House with the Red Door, or Knights of Hollow Hill. I
I mean,
mean,
you're giving up 8 gold
you're giving up
uh,
8 gold. So right
at
off
the
the
start of the
bat,
game.
yep, exactly. You are telling your opponent, you know what, have a touchdown, or here's a home run
Hmm.
real quick
Yep.
on a sports analogy level. Like, here's the high ground. You can have it. I'm going to rush the hill. So uh, with that, I mean, me and you've tried several different factions, Martell being the first because they're a little more attrition. And we figured attrition decks was gonna be the one to make this deck or make this agenda playable, if you will, in a competitive scene.
No, yeah, yeah. Well, I think one of the things that this deck does is, and I think we'll get into it a little bit later, but um, this Stark Hollow Hill, one of the like part number one of your game plan is to erase that early advantage, to claw that back.
Yep,
Find a way to erase that 8 gold that you've lost, and then you start to attrition and outvalue your opponent through the stats on your plot.
absolutely. Which that leads us into our game plan, right? Our game plan is with this deck is we've essentially given, us ourselves a handicap playing this agenda, but we found a house that can erase that handicap. So moving into the plus three, plus two, plus one, that's actually a great bonus to a lot of plots that otherwise need some bonuses to play these plots, right?
Agreed, agreed. I mean, you're looking at. I mean, I think one of the big advantages of being able to play something like, like Hollow Hill is to be able to play Political Disaster.
Exactly. Which is a
Um,
big plot right now,
yeah. So I
concerning
mean,
Greyjoy specifically.
yeah. I mean, those Greyjoy decks that want to go in, big on the warships. They want to go big in on, all that. All of a sudden, they have to now make a choice, and that's a 7 gold plot for you
Yep,
with good initiative. So
absolutely.
also considering Greyjoy, Hollow Hill. I mean, silence is a problem, but Hollow Hill at least lets you be competitive with some of those Greyjoy decks for initiative,
It does.
um, and so you can you can interact with their deck on that level. Whereas if you're just playing a normal deck, you're going second.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no way around that. So
Yeah, absolutely. That right there has been probably in my eyes the biggest boon to Greyjoy is that you're right, you don't get to interact on the initiative level anymore. It is not what it used to be on that. And that matters a lot for the win revealed for a lot of plots. Um,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
so, all right, we've hit the agenda here. In the car design, we gotta give props to Greg Atkinson, 2009 Joust World Champion. So he definitely
yeah.
this agenda was really good in first edition, just for the history. because there was another way to do econ, and I believe it was called influence.
Influence, yeah.
Yeah, so like this agenda was a little better in first edition on that level, where there was other ways around the econ, the no
Well,
setting
and
bonus.
you also in first edition you also had Westeros Bleeds,
Yeah,
which was an easier way of maybe wiping the
wiping the
board and
board.
clawing back some of that initial tempo disadvantage that you're giving up by the setup. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, speaking of plots, let's move to our plot line here. So we're going to be running
for
seven
sure.
plots. Um, so
Yep.
first off, we're going to start with Fallen with Favor. Um, it this right here has been the standard for Hollow Hill decks because people figured out, hey, it's 10 gold, 9 initiative, and then
8
8
reserve.
reserve.
I mean,
I mean,
it's
that's a
a
great
great
setup.
open.
Yeah, great opener right there. It's trading, but so much better. You're not giving the gold, better initiative, better reserve.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's
And there's no fallback because you don't have a character to sacrifice because no
yeah, there's no fallback. There you get into this situation where as we go through this plot line, you'll see that if you think or you know that your opponent is running naval, you're going to have to play a subpar opener. But in 95% of the games, Fallen's going to be your opener in this deck.
absolutely. Most of the
And
time,
occasionally you can catch somebody out. There more and more decks are running Riddle as an opener just to try to hit that at the gates, and you'll catch someone that riddles your Fallen, and hey, that's even better. That furthers your game plan.
absolutely. Good point. Yep. So Fallen typically, like you said, if you smell naval, you don't play it. And also, if you have certain key cards that me and you've kind of agreed upon and figured out, like if
Mm-hmm.
you have a ward starting hand, or if you have a Harrenhal, specifically Harrenhal, because you're gonna get the initiative to go first. No one's beating you first turn with this
Yeah,
initiative, and you wanting that gold to set Harrenhal up and get it out fast. Fallen is your plot, and that's kind of how
yeah,
you set up with Fallen. You get in your game plan like I'm going to start with Fallen because I do have these key cards, and Fallen's going to get me there.
yeah. And I know it's sidestepping the plots a little bit, but when I'm looking at setup, and we can come back to this, but Harrenhal and Ward are the first two cards I'm looking for on that setup. Um, at least in that initial drop. If I have those two, I'm probably going to keep that hand because I can open Fallen, I can get them out, I can start clawing back some of that tempo.
Yep,
That's your standard opener.
yep, absolutely. All right, let's move on to March to the Wall.
Sure.
This is standard. I mean, again, this is where Nice Hollow Hill just makes this even more better. I mean, reserve of
Yep.
6, initiative of 10, income of 7. That's really good. And of course, this is going to be your mid-game plot where, you've got the board whittled, or you've got to make them have a hard decision on which character they want to keep, which character is going to
Exactly.
further their game plan and things like that. Um,
Exactly. And there's choices in our deck that make setting up a March play easier. Plus, March just punishes that greedy setup too.
yep,
You want to set up your 7 cost Bob with no one else? Well, good luck to you.
exactly.
You know.
All right,
So.
moving on to political disaster, as we already talked about. This, I mean,
Hmm.
again, Nice All Hill making this plot just way more playable. Reserve of 5 is a lot better. Initiative of 5, income of 7. We love that. And of course, this is
Yep.
what we think is really can counter the meta right now. Punish those greedy shadow decks or even Greyjoy decks that need that income or that need those warships to get their modules going.
I mean, it punishes so much, right? I mean, it hits those decks. It can hit. I mean, any deck that wants to go wide on those locations, builders, things like that. Like it causes problems for a number of things.
Factions, yeah, absolutely. And in political disaster, you're probably looking turn 3 or 4 as well.
Yeah,
This is a mid game
yeah,
plot as well. Moving on to our 2 claim plot. The reason we picked Retail is mostly reserve. You keep 5 reserve. Some other decks have done when you die. We've tried that out. It's not too bad, but when you die becomes more of a later plot to close out. Rather than I feel like retail you can play in the middle as well, which is
Yeah, I don't
nice.
mind retail so much because you're forcing the other guy to go second, and if I have a ward in hand, I'd much rather see what he marshals out, hit something with ward, and then come in with two claim, later. So
Absolutely. You're typically trying to pair your ward up with this plot. You don't want to
exactly.
just waste your ward with a Plug Disaster or even a March to the Wall turn right away. I mean, if it's advantageous, sure, but really, yeah, ward on a retail turn is what hurts the most, and that's what you're trying to look for with this. Moving
Exactly.
moving on to the next one. This is really one of our favorites right now. Return to the Fields
This
is
card's so stupid. I love it.
yeah. I mean, a lot of people were playing coppers, and we kind of talked about it. And me and you kind of came out to that. Return to the Fields is just a better coppers to us.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah, you're losing board position, but you're whittling their board position down. So by this time, you're probably having an advantageous board. So you're really just wanting to get some things off to filter through, get more gold, and you probably
yeah,
already have a stacked hand compared to theirs by now too. That's kind of when you're wanting to play this too. And it
yeah,
is an outlet too where you're just like, man, I need cards. I need to keep
yeah.
this engine going. So
And
that's
it's
where we
such a
went with that.
blowout. It's such a blowout play. Like if you
Exactly.
can, if you can flip this into someone's valor, like it's silly and uh, good to know. You and I were actually talking earlier. In a normal deck, Wildfire beats this out, but if the opponent's running Wildfire, and you flip this into their Wildfire, you're still winning initiative on Hollow Hill. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that is the big thing is this beats out all resets. It beats Valor, of course, and that's devastating. We've come to the conclusion, you return the fields on a Valor turn, the opponent's lost then. It's just too much. We've been on the other end of that, and we've just felt when we Valor and they return, it's just too much for us to try to come back
yeah,
on.
they're too much of a tempo swing.
Yeah,
Um, I it would be a really special comeback if
very,
the opponent's able to do that.
very. It'd be almost a variance where your deck kind of, you know,
Yeah,
puts out on you.
you just start drawing Heart Tree Groves or something.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I mean it definitely crushes Valdo Harris on the initiative because you're
Mm-hmm.
+2 now. And then the key one like you talked about is Wildfire Assault. It puts you
Because
one
that's a
above that.
real feel bad when you flip that in on a normal deck, and it's like, okay, cool. Well, I guess I'll kill my guys.
Yep, exactly. The next one we're going to talk about is another is the first reset really, first snow winter. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Again, you're talking about, naval. If you smell naval, this is the one to play because most people playing naval are playing low key characters or low cost characters, and first snow is
Yep.
just gonna wipe their board. And this is
Yeah. So
effective reset for that.
yeah, and you're effectively negating any sort of advantage that they think they're getting on that turn because they're not pulling a whole heck of a lot of. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. They're
you're
not
coming out neutral.
Yeah, they're not pulling a whole lot of gold. And then, like Barra and Lanny and Tyrell and stuff like that. And even Stark, there's a lot of, low gold setups that people want to do because they want to get more characters out or more cards out of their hands so they can draw more. And then, at the gates for their Great Hall to put their big guy down.
Exactly.
So yeah, First Snow is also another good opener that can compete with Fallen with Favor, especially
I
if you
mean,
have a ward and you see a juicy forecaster down there. Um,
yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at you, Tyrell, a lot of the times. I see that,
I mean,
and
it's a 6 gold opener out of the Knights of the Hollow Hill.
yeah,
So,
six
and
seven
that's
with the 7 reserve, it's really good.
yeah.
So, all
And
right,
then we got Valor D.
and this is our mid to late game reset where you're getting pressed upon by Stark or Greyjoy, and you just couldn't
Mhm.
quite get it through your aggro, your attrition. This is where
Hmm.
this plot comes in, and the big reason we picked this plot is it's the claim one, really.
Yeah, I mean, we had played quite a few games with Valor Margolis and found that, like, honestly, most games we didn't need it.
At
Like
all.
most games, yeah, at all. Like most games, I didn't want to flip Valor M into my own board because, like, by the time I was ready to reset, like, I had already either equalized or had superior board position, and like I didn't want to clear the board. Like I was gonna pare it down anyway. I was in control of the game, and
Yeah, it,
I needed that claim one
yeah, it
to continue that to
continue.
go.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah. It definitely became disadvantaged
yeah.
for us.
But I mean, I'm sure there are people that prefer Valor M, and that's completely an understandable decision for this deck. I'm sure there are people that would play Valor M in this.
Yeah.
It just didn't work for our kind of our play style.
Yeah, and I mean people may want to play coppers over return, and they may
Sure.
want to play another march over first snow.
Yeah,
Um,
or you win or you die over. I
yeah,
mean,
retail. It's
there's some the plots in here are fairly flexible.
very, you know,
Um, I think Hollow Hill gives you, with that stat boost, gives you a lot of kind of
way
wiggle
more
room.
options. Yeah, way more options
Yeah,
than a standard deck could have with plots. That's
I
the
agree.
nice thing with Knights of the Hall Hill. It opens the plot game a lot. All
Hmm.
right, so moving on, we'll move to our draw deck. First off, you guys will see it's 61. I know that's heretical. A lot of people hate that. We're kind of we like that 61.
I'll
Um,
play 62. I'm a bad boy.
I
I'll
mean,
pop that collar and play 62. Whew,
I mean, I'll raise
man.
you to 63. All right.
Yeah, I'll see you
Uh,
63 and keep
yeah,
going. And
absolutely.
yeah, I know there's the mathematicians out there tell me that's wrong, but
Yeah.
you know what? My heart says it's right.
Yeah, we're more emotional guys here, all right? We're not no nerds with some math here. All right, so moving on. All right, we got 32 characters, 7 attachments, 13 locations, 9 events.
Yeah, and
Um,
a lot of, when we get to the locations, you'll see, you know, we're playing not only a small location base, but locations that leave the board on their own, so to try to mitigate the impact of that political disaster on ourselves.
yep,
So
absolutely. So we're looking at 7 neutrals, 54 Stark. We're looking at 20 mil icons, 8 intrigue, and 14 power. And yes, you're gonna see, mill is definitely the challenge that this deck is going for first. So we're definitely aggro. We're early. Intrigue, that is a challenge that may or may not happen. The nice thing about the smaller boards is, we have characters like Mira who's got stealth, and then we got
hmm.
events like I Am No One, so like Mira can get through, still standing and do another challenge. So like the intrigue, you're not so much pulling their hand with the
No,
intrigue. What you're doing is you're trying
and
to force them to spin their cards in their hand onto the board, and then you just wipe them away. So you're effectively
exactly.
just nullifying their hand. And then to close the game, you need power icons. And so we
Yeah,
try to keep as much power icons as we can. So really, power is your next best challenge next to military.
and
Um,
we have four renowned characters in the build that can help close the game,
yes,
uh,
we can.
if need be. So
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking at the character strengths. You got a couple characters, strength one, strength two. The highest is going to be strength three. So we have a lot of strength three characters. And anything above that is very low. So you're not going to be pushing challenges through brute force. A lot of it's going to be through stealth or multiple attackers.
well, or you know, just attrition stuff like March, like Ward. We'll get into Ramsey, Skagos. I mean,
Yep.
there's you're not, if your opponent's able to flood the board out on you. Um, it's going to become really hard for you to push through challenges because you don't have a lot of those high strength characters, and
Yep.
so this deck has tools to kind of mitigate that.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. And then cost curve, you're looking, you got some zero cost. Um, cost one and cost three are going to be your highest. Those are going to be your highest curves right there.
yeah,
Some cost two, and then we have very low. Anything above four is very low on the cost curve.
yep,
Um, so let's move on to characters. We're not gonna go buy every single one of them, but you're gonna have your Alisane, which I mean, the no attachments is really nice, especially if someone else is running ward or any other icon stripping or something like that. Milk.
yep,
Her stealth with the military challenge, that's the biggest reason why she's in the deck.
yep, yep.
Arya, everyone knows Arya. She's just value city all day long. And then of
Hmm.
course you have her. We did have Valor Morgulis. She would help on that, but um, we're not really running her this version for Valor Morgulis anymore. We have some kill things, or even if they have a dupe, they can't just take the dupe off. That's the big
Yep.
reason she's there.
Hmm.
Let's talk about Bear Island Scouts. I think this is really what makes the deck go. For
Okay,
me,
Bear Island Scout into She Bear is one of my favorite things.
it is by
Like
far.
it's such value. Like it feels like it's not as good, but for me it feels like um, it feels like playing like pre-restricted list Targ,
Yeah,
where you just get to cheat stuff in.
absolutely,
Um, so I mean, Barrelland Scout, you know, two cost. You're going and you know, if each character you control has a Stark affiliation, search your deck for a House of Mormont card. You're going and finding, Daisy Mage if you need her. A
Uh,
lot of times you're finding She Bear,
yeah. You got
um,
Alsane, you got Daisy,
Alisane.
we
I
got
mean, there's
Mage, and
so we have a little Mormont package, um, but just the ability to tutor out those cards on demand as you need them, um, and then to if you're playing if you find that She Bear, to then bring her out and drop in a frozen solid, drop in an ice, you know, bring out drop in a summer or an aria for
Aria.
free.
Yep,
Like there's so much like it, when we're talking about trying to erase that tempo advantage that opponent has because you gave up that 8 gold, Bear Island Scout is a huge way of doing that.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. For me, it's the going and finding someone. You are gaining the card advantage, if you will, through searching, like through going in and getting, and you're guaranteeing you're getting another character out of
Hmm.
this. You're not
Yeah,
relying on the normal two card draw, hoping you find a character. I mean, filtering is very powerful in this game. I used to play Star Wars customizable card game, and that was what that game was about, was just filtering your deck for exactly what you need at that exact moment. And
yeah,
that game was very powerful with that. This game is very restricted on that, so cards that do that are automatically high on the power curve, if you will.
yeah. I mean, if you're looking at like cost to cost to ability ratio, it's really good. I mean, not only it's a chud, you can die for claim, but one of the things that is brought up in the article is um, that characters with abilities are much more valuable if they have interplay abilities because that limits the chances that your opponent can interact with that ability. I mean, obviously, if you're playing Greyjoy and they're playing John God Fanatic or Vince, whatever you're calling that card, that's the exception here. But a lot of decks, have very few ways of interacting with that enters play ability, and so it's huge value.
Yeah. Um, I mean, you can also use the other word efficiency, which he uses. He
Sure.
quotes someone off of it. MTG, Magic Gathering website. This guy's he's quoting saying efficiency is a rough measure of how much bang you get for your buck. How much effect does a card provide given the resources you spend on it? Every card requires resource expenditure. There are no exceptions. Even if a card costs zero mana and zero alternative costs, it still costs the card itself. And I know me and you were talking about this earlier. I mean, Roy has been really good on that, talking about, you know, even if you play a zero, or free event, or even if She Bear brings a card in, it's still costing you something.
Yeah, the opportunity cost is still the card playing that card
Card.
over something else. And I think one of the power of Bear Island Scout is that yes, it costs you that card, but it replaces itself in your hand,
Yeah,
and it tutors that specific card that you're looking for.
exactly.
So
Then
it
he goes
mitigates some
on.
of that.
Yeah, he goes on. This is something that is frequently overlooked by inexperienced deck builders. Always remember that at a minimum, a card costs the card itself, and there are many cards whose effects simply don't justify that cost. Going back to what you were saying, that's just reinforcing that there's just cards that you pay for that just don't. Basically, why did you pay for it? Is the question
Yeah,
that comes
as
comes to
as a
mind.
friend of mine would say, the juice isn't worth the squeeze on some of it.
On
You know.
some, yeah, exactly. So yeah, so Barrier Island Scout is definitely probably one of your powerful cards, one of your most powerful cards here. And then moving to the one you were talking about, the next one, because my typical play, especially, I would like to see a Barrier Island Scout in hand or at least draw one, draw two.
Uh
Um,
huh.
Draw, what I mean by draw one, draw two is like turn one, turn two. I would like to see
Hmm.
it. And I usually typically like to spin two, go get another Bear Island Scout, and then spin that two. That way I have some board presence, like you said, some Chud claim. And then I like
Yeah,
to go find She Bear, which is this is probably mean your favorite card in the past couple months that we've been playing with
I
her.
completely underrated or
Yeah.
card when it came out until I played with it, and then it was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
what is happening?
She Bear.
She Bear.
Oh, so,
Yeah,
I mean, this right here, you're looking at her stats, 3 for 3, that's really good. But
I mean,
just the
it's mill
mill
icon.
icon, that's where you're just like, ugh, I'm not sold on that. I mean, Stark always, has these just mill icons, like Greyjoy always has these just mono power icons. But then you're looking at her effect here, and you start thinking outside the box, like, man, I can play a lot actually. The cost
Yeah,
cut for
it's
Stark is 3, is
it's the
majority.
value that she provides. Like I don't give a rip what she does when she's on the board.
Yeah.
She can die for claim. I can kneel her out for a forced march, whatever. But it's the ability to cheat something else in that I'm really looking for in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Wyman can sack her. She can be sacked by return to the field. She can die to claim, like you said. Like her value right there is she can get a challenge off and then be cleared.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, you're looking at Marriage Pact, Ice, Frozen Solid, Aria, Summer are some of the bigger
I
ones
mean,
that you probably have.
Alisane. I mean,
Alisane, yeah,
you know, yeah, there's so much that you can do with her. And as we'll see later, like these cards like Bear Island Scout and She Bear, like once they've tutored their cards or brought something else into play, we have other cards in the deck that we're gonna get like Ramsey and Skagos. Like they're just fuel for that engine
yep,
later. So
absolutely. All right, so the next one we're gonna talk about is Bolton Flare. I'm glad these guys are back. I really missed them.
yeah.
I mean, they've been in other decks like the 2018 Worlds winner, the
Hmm.
Martel Wolf by Leonard. Um, these guys do work in this deck in the sense that they help you climb out of that hole, or they nullify whatever analogy you want to use. They nullify that agenda's setback because these guys are hitting the low key characters that most people are using. The most people who play good clean thrones, they want chuds to protect their big names, and
But
that's
do
what
people play good clean thrones still?
some people do out there actually. We're not
Okay,
one of
fair
those
enough.
guys. There are some of those people out there. Baron
For
players,
me,
Laney players,
oh
they're the kind
yeah,
of the biggest culprits. Even
they
Stark
still play
players.
clean thrones. Dang it.
Yeah.
Fair
Um,
enough.
yeah. You,
For me, Flare has been one of the things I've had to adjust to in playing this build because you need to be aware we are running cards that Flare hits on your side of the board. So you know your Bear Island Scouts, um, your Mira, like having to play your own Mira is not a good feeling.
no,
Obviously, we have we run, as we'll get to, we run Summer in here to bring her back, but Flare does a lot of work, but it also requires you to like really think about like when you're bringing him out and what you're wanting him to do.
exactly.
Um, so it
His
can be a trap card if you're playing it unthinkingly.
Exactly. Yeah. His big characteristics here, or his timing or whatever, is early with a lot of chug claim,
Exactly.
specifically their chug claim. So
To
yeah,
set up a march or something is great.
yeah. So like my biggest play with him that I typically like to do is first snow.
Hmm.
I have them go first. I set them up into shadows. And if I have a no one, I am no one even better.
Oh yeah.
And these guys, like they're good cost ratio. Um, and yeah, if they only have a one guy set up or even just two guys still left after the first snow, he's stealthing one of them. Strength 3 can usually beat quite a few people.
Yep.
So yeah, you're taking out, a extra guy, if you will. You're taking out, the protection that they will have for the key character for March. Then you
Yep.
get an intrigue off. You're drawing two cards, and then he just kills himself, which is totally fine.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll play him all day for
yeah,
that.
exactly. That's to me
Just
get a lot of value out of that.
just beware. Like
Yeah.
he will hit things in your own deck if you're not considering it.
Yeah, and if you're not doing the whole first no thing, and you're just going into fallen, you have to consider your marshaling very, very carefully.
Hmm.
So, all right. The rest, I mean, we know Mira. Mira is very key. She works very well in this deck. We know what
Yep.
Ramsey does. I mean,
I mean,
he's that extra march, if you will.
Ramsey into Skagos with a Bear Island Scout can just it's just crippling
Yeah,
for a lot of players.
very much so.
Rob, he's gonna you got your stand
He's your
ability.
closer. Yeah,
He's your closer. You got your renown.
yeah,
One character that I've been really pleased with has been Malister, Sir Jason Malister.
yes,
Um, Especially as more people are playing Shadows. You know, the ability to hit their shadows and interact with their shadows deck has been surprisingly good.
very good. Absolutely.
Yeah. Um,
So the last person is Summer. Summer's very integral to this deck.
yep.
Summer and Skagos just really just make it, especially if your hand just takes a hit and you're just like, man, I'm not drawing my draw cards. Summer will
Yep.
keep that going and it'll keep you limping on as far as you can go. You
Yep.
can get a lot of mileage out of her. And then
Yep.
we do have Umber Loyas for the extra draw.
Yeah.
And
I
then
do want
yeah, go
to
ahead.
real quick. I do want to point something out. We in the build we are begging, that is something that you and I had discussed prior to. We had switched some cards around. The begging brother does turn off your Alisane. It does turn off your tutor with the Bear Island Scout, just because not all of your cards have that Stark affiliation. But it's more of a meta call, I think, at this point. Like there's so many cards that Begging Brother really like cripples or prevents, that's a trade off we're willing to make. If you're looking at this deck and you don't want to make that, like there are easy switches that you could
Oh
switch
yeah.
Begging Brother out for.
Yeah, we switched them out because there was originally, we saw a lot of people playing two times Roos. We didn't really like Roos. Cost a lot. Never really used them to effect that
I'll,
we liked.
no, I'll tell you what did me in for Roos was playing a Greyjoy deck when they were playing Box Balon.
Yeah.
And that's terrible to have to face your own Roos every turn.
Every turn.
Who's wiping who's wiping your own board? I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's for the birds. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, that's a yeah, Roos, these Boltons, they can play any team.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
they
But
are they are
so
free agents.
Begging Brothers a
Yeah.
flex spot in it.
It's it is, and we haven't really tested too much with them, so like it's easily changeable.
Yeah, it's
For other
something that we
cards.
might take out later.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to attachments. We got your typical attachments here. We decided to go with Frozen Solid because it nullifies a lot of good locations out there right now. Whether
Yep.
it's Greyjoy, Targ, even the mirror match,
Yep.
even passive power with Barra, stuff like that. So you guys
Yep.
know that card. Moving into our locations, as Todd talked about earlier, a lot of our locations like Harrenhal, Kings Road, a lot of those are sackable, so
Yep.
don't need them as much. Skagos could go up to three.
Could.
Very well could go up to three. I know most people
I
don't
mean,
want
you're
to
just
play
moving
three.
into like apostasy zone on playing 62 cards, though. Oof.
Exactly, exactly. But I mean, you could take out a Bacon's brother for it or something like
That's true.
that.
Fair
But
enough.
we really like the Iron Throne. This
Yeah.
is a spicy card, if you will. Not so much that it's the Iron Throne, but it's more or less putting it in this deck. A lot of people would not make this call. We just felt when it came to rush decks, we were having trouble with keeping up with power and then just closing as well. And the Iron Throne, I mean, this is how this game works. It's the minuscule, plays and the power gain that happen throughout each turn that really helps you get to it's all about 15 power. And Iron
Yep.
Throne does that incrementally where it gets to the point where you're like, hey, I'm making it, I'm getting there, and that extra reserve too is definitely big.
Yeah, I mean, making retaliation with a hollow hill, making retaliation like a 6 reserve plot. That's pretty darn good.
Pretty darn good. Yeah.
Um, one thing, real quick on the attachments, I wanted to point
Yep.
out. So our restricted in this deck is Ward
Yep.
over Wyman because we're trying to play the more attrition game. We're trying to claw back that 8 gold disadvantage. But the 3 frozen solid and the 1 ice, you can pay straight up for them. But they're also, you can also bring them in with She Bear. So
Yep.
that's more just value that you can pull out of this deck to help you help gain some of that tempo advantage.
Absolutely. Then event package, no one's surprised. Winter is coming, and then no surprises, of course, is the biggest thing. And then I am no one. That's your draw. It's your other draw, along with the Umber Loyalists, and then the searchable ability with Bear Island, and the recur ability with Summer. So
I mean, there's always the loyalist bring out Mira in challenge or in marshaling blank your loyalist and then Skagos hit to draw more. I mean,
draw
there's
more.
there's ways of drawing in this deck.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and then of course you got your return to the fields. So that's,
and
I
your return
mean,
to the fields.
that's pretty much it. That's the deck. Don't think there's too much to talk about anymore. It's pretty straightforward. Um, if you guys have any questions, you guys can just put it below. We'd love to, chat with you guys. You guys could also hit us up on Messenger anytime,
Sure.
or even, Facebook, just a regular Facebook post too. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, Todd, I mean, this is it. This is House Stark, Knights of the Hill. Of course, you always got to name your deck.
Hmm.
That's the best part about doing this stuff. So we chose
What we
this is
name
the
this
hill
one?
to die on right now. Hollow
Exactly.
Hill is the one we're gonna die on. So I think that's it. That's gonna wrap it up. So the next video is we're gonna have Todd play this deck on Iron
Oh
Throne.
boy.
So get a little action and then just talk it through and talk
see
about
how that
play why
goes.
we play. Yeah, see how it goes. So thanks guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. We'll continue to try to pump out some more videos like this, maybe once a week or so. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, definitely let us know about feedback and what you guys would like to have or not have. Um, and then just overall, what you think about our analysis and what we could get better. So, any closing remarks, Todd?
No, man. I mean, I, I think this is a pretty solid deck in the meta. Like if you were to take this to, to a tournament, but I'm interested to see what people think about it, and then how wrong I am in my analysis. So
Absolutely.
I welcome the comments if you
Yeah,
got them,
we
bring them on.
do. Yeah, and yeah, I mean Greyjoy and Free Folk now being up there, and it can struggle against shadows. Trishan struggles against boards that you can't hit. But yeah,
That's
I
true.
mean it's definitely I would agree on that. It's a good meta call, and can't wait to hear what you guys feedback. So again, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it,
Thanks,
guys.
y'all.
Have a great day.
We did it. Yes. Yes, we did it. No price to pay. We broke our rules just like her. The bill comes due.